All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I am Jeremy with Made Management, and I am here today with the one, the only Candace Stewart. So, welcome. I'm glad that you are joining us today. And I know that you're joining us from Atlanta, right?
Yes, yes, I'm in Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you being here today. And tell us, I know that Atlanta had a snow apocalypse that happened this
Oh,
last week. Did you survive?
I survived. This was the second snowpocalypse of the season, which is really funny because it's never really supposed to snow in Atlanta. So I finally had the opportunity to play in snow for the first time. Yeah, experience it falling from the sky because I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised. So that's something that I've never experienced before. So yeah, I'm no
Nice.
longer foreign to snow.
Well, good. So,
Yeah.
if those of you who are out there that don't know, it never snows in Atlanta. So, I was actually in Atlanta, believe it or not, maybe I would say 8, 9 years ago, and it did snow.
Oh,
So, I
so it's ever so often, I suppose, it
right.
decides to snow a bit, but everyone was saying it's not going to stick, it's not going to stick, and then it stuck, and so we've had a really nice snow adventure all over the city. Yeah,
Wow. So you were making snowmen all week.
snowmen all week, snowmen with eyelashes, snowmen with hair, like you name it. People were out there just making all types of things. So it was really funny to watch and to see as you drove around slowly. It's really fun.
Everybody's having a good time in the snow.
Yeah.
Some people that are on here today probably live in the snow and they think you're crazy, you know.
They probably do. They probably like being from LA, it's like you're a weather brat. You don't really experience like thunderstorms or snow or all the elements and seasons as well. So this is my first like I've been in Atlanta for about 11 months, almost a year. So I've experienced like all of the seasons, the snow, like the thunderstorms, the rain, like so it's just been an adjustment, let's say.
An adjustment, but I'm sure you're enjoying every minute,
I'm
right?
enjoying it. Yeah, I really am. I really am. I'm happy to call this place home now. Yeah.
Good. Well, welcome to the stream. With the snow, snow's great if you get like 2 days of it, right? And then that's it. You don't want any more.
No more, because I've been stuck inside, afraid to drive, people sliding all over the place. But it's good that everything is remote. Like, as you know, with the industry, everything is virtual. So I'm able to work from home. I'm able to still watch tapes. I'm still able to take meetings. So I'm cooped up, but I'm still at full force. Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
Just drinking all that hot chocolate and coffee.
Right. That's right.
Well, welcome. I want you to introduce yourself to everyone who's out there. I know a lot of people probably don't know who you are, and I would love to hear not only about you but your background,
Mhm.
and tell us a little bit about how you got here today. Who are you,
Yeah.
and how did you get here?
Yeah, so my name is Candace Stewart. I'm a talent agent at DDO Artist Agency. I've been an agent for about 16 years. I grew up in LA, like I stated, and I always wanted to do something in entertainment. I'm not an actor, I'm not a singer or a dancer, I'm not talented in the way that a lot of others are. But I was just enamored with what actors are able to bring to the table, the ability to take a script or a scene and create a whole character with a backstory and really bring that character to life. And so my obsession with watching people do that led me to going to college and getting a degree in cinema, television arts, media management, so the business side of entertainment. And then after college, I interned at a talent management company and I stuck with talent representation ever since. And that's the 16 years. And so I kind of have done a little bit of everything that is on camera representation. So I started off as a commercial agent, a junior theatrical agent. Then I was a youth agent for multiple years, worked with kids specifically. Then I transitioned back to adult commercial. And then at the height of the pandemic, I, had my own come to Jesus moment where I realized that I wasn't really passionate about commercials. And so I switched back to television and film. And so I've been in that field ever since. And then not last year, but the year before, during the writer's strike and the actor's strike, the owner of DDO reached out and said she wanted to add Atlanta to the company. And so I thought it over and I said, you know what, I'm down. Let's do it. So now DDO is established in LA, Chicago, New York, now Atlanta. And basically, I'm working with local actors in Atlanta while I'm also still working with actors in LA. So I do split my time between the two markets. And so I rep clients here in Atlanta that are some are most are here in the Southeast. Others are in LA, some are in Chicago, some are in New York that can be considered local hires to Atlanta, but for the most part, focusing on Southeast talent and talent that can make it to Atlanta in any way, shape, or form for production or a shoot. So that's kind of my story about, who I am and where I came from. But ultimately, I've been doing it so long. I love what I do. I love finding new talent. I love scouting new and finding new faces. So at the end of the day, yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy, to answer any questions you guys have.
Nice. Well, so Atlanta for about a year now,
Yeah,
and I'm seeing some of the comments come in. Somebody just messaged, "Hey, that's my agent, Candace."
oh, hey, I love it. I love it. Yes.
Uh, so how is the Atlanta market? I would love to talk to you about that. I know that, obviously there's different markets around the world,
Mhm.
and Atlanta's kind of a hot spot. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, before I made the transition from LA to Atlanta, I wasn't really sure what the market had in store. Obviously, a DDO wasn't established in the Southeast at the time. When I transitioned to Atlanta and finally was able to, sit down and start building Atlanta, uh, there are so many projects. There were more projects than I could even possibly imagine. When LA was kind of like trugging along, a lot of productions were still happening here in the Southeast, and that's the one major difference between Atlanta or the Southeast in general compared to all the other markets is that. If it's shooting in LA, it's shooting in LA. If it's shooting in Chicago, it's shooting in Chicago. The Southeast is a little different where you have productions that are happening in Atlanta, but you're also having productions that are taking place, whether it be in Nashville, Alabama, the Carolinas, Florida, even. So it's more of a regional type of situation. So the actors that I represent are regional actors. So some of my clients are in all those multiple places as long as it comprises the Southeast. And they can be a local hire to Atlanta, whether they have family or friends that live here for that and have an address that they can utilize. But it's fair, and everything over here is fairly close. That's the big difference as well with comparing it to LA. California is large. It's kind of isolated to get to, Nevada, to get to any other state. It's quite the trek. Whereas you can jump in a car and in 2 hours or an hour and a half, you're in Alabama. So driving regionally is not too much of a request for productions down here. So that's why it's a little bit more regional based as opposed to it being, specifically filmed in that one city. But down here, there are so many productions happening. Like right now, there's Scarpetta that's filming in Nashville with Nicole Kidman. There's His and Hers, which is another episodic that's filming in, I believe, Wilmington. But there's a lot of productions that are happening all over. And every time I turn around, there's a new project, there's a new series, there's a new something that's happening here in the Southeast. So it's every day is very exciting. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful area. That's why they like to film down there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. It's, and I would say the only setback would be the weather from time to time. Whereas, in LA, for the most part, outside of like, fires and all the things that are happening there right now, which is an anomaly for how much damage has happened there. But for the most part, outside of the weather, you'll have the productions down here primarily will utilize their weather days should there be random rain or snow or something along those lines. But for the most part, they have beautiful studios, brand new studios that they've built. There's Trilith Studios. Tyler Perry obviously has his studio down here. There's just an array of different venues that different studios can utilize that are down here in the Southeast.
Nice, very good. And I think Tyler Perry kind of boosted the whole area when he built his studio down there.
He did, brought a lot of production down here, and from there, everyone else followed suit, and as well as the production incentives that the state has enacted has definitely brought more production down here. At the end of the year, they do their I don't want to call it a rebate, but what they do is that they'll apply for their rebate and then they'll get the money back from production that happens here. So, and they have the requirements of Along with that is the requirement of hiring local talent. That's why having an address in Atlanta is vital, because you can put yourself up in a hotel, you can do all those things. That's great. But at the end of the day, they need a home address. They need a place that, that is a private residence to utilize to enact those tax incentives at the end of the year.
Got it. Well, let's
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit. You mentioned it a couple of times, being a local hire.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean? With, say, for someone like myself, I'm currently in Puerto Rico,
Okay.
and I want to come to Atlanta and become the next superstar. And
Yeah.
and so you decide you wanted to work with me. Could I work on projects in Atlanta, being that I'm not physically living there?
You can. It's one of those things where it can be a little tricky. And the only way and it could be a little tricky, just meaning in the sense of you have to have the flexibility with your schedule. With that being said, like if we are working together and I submit you on a project that's filming here in Atlanta, and they say, okay, great. Are they available? Let's say, February 3rd through the 14th. We don't know exactly which day they're going to be filming. So we usually will find out probably a couple days prior to your report to set or to fitting. So as long as you have the flexibility to say, hey, I am available, and then you're able to jump on a plane, get to Atlanta. So that's the first step. The next step would be having a local address to utilize. And that could be through a friend or a family friend, or however way, shape, or form you're able to find that local address. As long as you're able to put that on the contracts, that then you're able to be considered a local hire.
Okay, very good. So if I get a PO box in Atlanta, would that be considered a local address?
No, unfortunately, no. So not a PO box. I know some people are thinking Airbnbs, but I wouldn't necessarily lean into that if you can avoid it. So the best thing to do is try to find, maybe a place that, like, a place to rent out, or the main thing is probably finding family or a friend or a friend of a friend that has an address that you can just utilize for the contract. Now, if you're not able to stay at that address, that's completely fine. But as long as you're able to provide one, and then the way that it works for payment is normally payments go to the agency, either way, for processing. So as long as we're able to send a check authorization to production, and then you put down our agency address on the contracts, that verifies that the check will be sent to the agency. So there's no lost payment at an address that you actually didn't utilize, if that makes sense.
Got it. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because that's a quick flight from here, from Puerto Rico to Atlanta. So
Yeah. How quick is that flight? Is it just a
it's
couple
just a couple
hours?
hours.
Yeah, that's easy. That's easy breezy. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a good-looking guy with a beard, just keep me
You
posted. Let
got
me.
it. You got it. Like the Dollar Shave Club commercial of some sort. Keep it
uh,
fresh.
just no shampoo commercials. I'm
No
against that.
shampoo. Okay, we'll do that. No.
I wanted to ask you, what type of clients do you typically represent? What does your portfolio look like when it comes to clients?
Yeah, so my portfolio is quite an array. Meaning I have my youngest client is 5 years old. My oldest client is 78. And so I represent actors for like on camera. So that could be for strictly for commercial or for print, and TV and film. But my client roster is also an array of skill set, whether it be, I have someone who works part-time for Cirque du Soleil, she's an acrobatic performer, and she auditions ever so often for those types of roles. And that's the only thing that she really wants to do, is just to be part of, any productions that need her skill set. Whereas I have clients that are series regulars on different series down here in Atlanta that I work with, to help build their notoriety outside of this market, pushing them into the LA market, pushing them into the New York and Chicago market when applicable. So I have an array of different skill sets. I have an array of resumes, whether it's a limited resume, that doesn't sway me. As long as you have the talent and the ability to do what's needed, and you're able to bring the role to life, that's what I'm necessarily looking for, not large resumes, although that doesn't hurt. But that, well, we all know that someone has to start somewhere. But if you have the talent, it's easy to build that resume as quickly as possible so that we can really maximize and push you into other markets.
Nice. So obviously you want somebody that can speak 20 languages and can play 50 instruments and can do it
Yeah.
all. But if they're just starting out,
Yeah.
you're saying as long as they have great talent, you're okay with
Great talent. Yeah, they take it seriously. They're in class, they're studying, they are eager. And I would say that's the big difference between, some of my top bookers and others, is that they take it seriously. It's not a part-time job to them, because it's a full-time job for me. And the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So the more training, the more classes, the more you watch television and commercials to see what they're hiring, whom they're hiring, what are the current trends. I watch as much as I possibly. I think I watch more commercials and more TV and movies than most other people. Although right now, coming back from the holiday, I've had a little bit of a lapse in being able to watch things because it's been quite busy. But for the most part, you have to do your research. You just have to watch and see what's happening in the industry. Note, what who's part of what production and what's in production, what's going to be happening in the Southeast, what's going to be happening in the different markets, and kind of read the trades. That's super important for anyone that is in any industry. Everyone follows their trades, their news. So that's something that's vital. But, as long as you're able to commit to this, it's not a part-time thing. The more you get put into it, the more you get out of it.
Nice, very good. So watch as much TV as possible is what you're
As
saying.
much as you can. Yes, as much as you can. And and that's the main thing too when it comes to like pilots and like new series that are in development. A lot of times we don't have. It's not like 911 where you can go back and watch all those seasons to get a feel and the tone of the show. The big difference is, if you're committed to this, you'll take a look at who is the writer of the series, of the pilot, who are the producers of the pilot, and then from there you can kind of finalize and figure out a tone and how to build the character based on their prior work. So it just takes a little bit more effort and more energy, but at the end of the day, the more you put into it, the more research you do, the more energy you put behind your commitment to becoming, a notable actor, is you'll get more out of it as quickly as possible. Yeah.
So if anybody's out there and you're still living at home and you're in school, just whenever you're watching television, just tell your parents, I'm studying. I'm
Yeah.
doing my homework.
Yep. 100%. That's exactly what it is. Because that's the one question that I do ask potential new clients is, what are you watching right now? Like, what entertains you? And, sometimes I'll get answers like, I'm not really watching anything current. I'm watching Friends. I'm watching Seinfeld. I'm watching and it's like, that's great. These are classics. Like, I get it. But I want you to start watching, Yellowstone, like watch the shows that are currently in production, get an idea of, what they want. But the more research you do, the better. So yeah, watch as much as you can. It's homework.
And you touched on a good point, when you're researching, also research who the directors are or
Yeah.
what their style is, right? So do
Yep.
you suggest that for any of your clients when they're auditioning for a role, to go in and look at and try to get as much information about the project as possible, even if it is a new
Mhm.
project?
Absolutely, 100%. And I know that, at times, life can be chaotic, and, sometimes talent, they have a lot of things going on in their personal life. So if I have the time and the ability, I will add a link to, a deadline article about the series. I'll include as much information, like who's attached to the series. If I'm able to get and find a script, I'll send that along with the audition so that they can get a look at the entire episode, as opposed to just that one portion that they're required to audition for. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to do as much research as you can about different projects, because it definitely helps. Like, for example, right now they're working on a new series from the creators of Stranger Things. And it's going to be like, I don't want to give anything away because I'm not allowed to, but But at the end of the day, it's like we know nothing really about the series. But what we do know is that the writers, the producers, they all were part of the Stranger Things team, and it's filming in New Mexico, and it's going to be an amazing series, I say. And there's another series that's in development. I think they're towards the end, which are from the creators of Breaking Bad. So again, we don't know the tone, we don't know, but we know the tone of Breaking Bad. We know that it's grounded. We know that it's probably going to be dramatic in so many different ways. So at the end of the day, you want to do as much research as you can.
Nice. And so can you give us some tips? Those of you who don't have a great agent like yourself representing them, where would they go to find good resources into, who's on what production?
I would say Deadline is a really good way to kind of go about it. You can type in someone's name, all the articles will pop up that are associated with that person. That's the main one that I use. Variety as well. They're always consistently, like every day, they're pumping out new articles, whether they're long or short, just to give you a heads up of what to expect in the industry. I know that there are probably other trades out there. There's another one, I forget the name, but it's a production website that also tells you what production is happening where, who's attached to it, the stars attached to it. I can't think of the name right now off the top of my head, but if you just dive in, dig in, do some Googling, do some research, you'll find some trades that you respond to, as well as like on Instagram or social media, there's pages as well. Like there's a page that I follow here in Atlanta that's about Atlanta productions, and basically just gives you the heads up like, hey, this is coming here, this is currently in production, and it just kind of consistently shows up in my feed. So it's now part of my everyday. So it's not that I have to go out and do a ton more research. It's right there on my feed. So if you find those accounts, follow those, because it's a nice way to, you know, ingrain yourself in whichever market you're looking for. I'm sure there's one for LA. I'm sure there's one for Chicago. I'm sure there's one for New Mexico. So just kind of do your research, find the accounts and follow, and Google online and find a trade that works best for you.
And I'm sure those of us that are being joined here from international markets, I'm sure there's one in Australia and some in Europe as well.
100%, 110%. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, let's dive into what you do, obviously on a day-to-day basis. First question I have for you is, do you require exclusive representation? So let's say you decide to represent a good, handsome guy with a beard. Would you be my exclusive agent?
Yes, but that it depends. So for me, I primarily right now I'm focusing on the Southeast. So for me, DDO as a whole is a SAG franchise agency. So we follow all the rules and protocols that are put in place by SAG. So ours is a SAG contract. We are exclusive, but we are exclusive to that specific market. So if I have a client that I represent here in Atlanta, I'm going to represent them for the Southeast. They can have an agent in LA, Chicago, New York, maybe New Mexico, because those aren't necessarily the markets that I'm targeting for them. So they're able to find other rep in other markets, but we are exclusive to the markets. Reason for that is because you don't want 2 or 3 agents working for you in one market, and then let's say you book a series regular role, and then everyone is going to say, well, I submitted and I pitched, and so then you end up having to maybe split the commission or pay extra out of pocket to the different reps that you have, because it's really hard to pinpoint exactly where the audition truly came from. So that's why we're exclusive, to kind of eliminate that confusion, for the betterment of the agency, but also for the better benefit of the actor themselves.
Got it. And so if somebody was in let's say an international market, would
Mhm.
that hinder, like, could they work with somebody internationally and work with you potentially?
Yep, 100%. If you, I do have a client that has a rep in the UK, and he's consistently flying over there, working on different projects. That's overseas. That's not necessarily my market. The only market that I would say can be a little muddy at times is the Canadian markets, depending. Well, they'll have productions that are happening in Vancouver or Toronto, And a lot of times they'll release roles to the agents in the States, while at the same time releasing it to the agents in Canada. So sometimes that can be a little tricky. I haven't had any issues thus far. But for the most part, overseas, you can have rep over there with no issue, or you can be overseas and be repped in the States with no issue.
Nice. Now, question, is there any cost for you to represent
Yeah.
talent?
No, no cost, no cost. And if anyone were to ever ask for upfront fee, I would say run. Because the trade is that we do not make money until our clients make money. We work commission based. So if you book a project, again, being SAG franchise, anything that is union is 10% of the gross. And then for anything non-union, which is like a non-union commercial or print job, is 20%. And that's pretty much industry standard for agents. Managers are a little different. They're able to set their rate as they see fit, which can be between 10, 15, or 20%, depending. But for us, no upfront fees, nothing that you need to do. The only thing that we would require would be for you to, create the profiles online so that we're able to submit you properly. Making sure that you have materials that we can utilize, so we can get you in the room, which is headshots, making sure your resume is put together properly. Again, the online profiles for casting networks, Actors Access. In LA specifically, there's also Casting Frontier that they use, which we don't really use in the Southeast. And that's primarily for commercial and print jobs as well. So, yeah.
So if I'm a brand new actor breaking into the industry, those materials that you just mentioned, so headshot, how important is it for me to get those set up and ready to go?
Super important. When a person is submitting to the agency or submitting to me, the first thing I'm going to look for is their headshots. The second thing I'm going to look for is their resume. So you're going to want to make sure that you have at least one really nice solid headshot. Now you don't have to go out and do 4 looks or even 3 looks, because when you're working with an agent or a manager, they're going to start guiding you. They're going to photographer send you materials to look through. Multiple, and for that, that's they guide you in a different way. But is making sure they focus, making sure that there's a nice backdrop. So really focus on your face, focus on what you're selling. Hedge is important. Even clients